Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Bhajikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhajikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of May, 2019 in San Diego, we're reading from Sri Isopanisad, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're going to chant mantra 2 again and pick up on the purport where we left off. Kovan evehi karmani Jijivishet chatang samaha evam tahi nanyate tosti. The na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare kuvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatang samaha evam tvahi namnyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. All right, I'll skip the synonyms since we read those already. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to the way for man. So one may logically ask, what way is that? So we'll read text mantra 1, sorry. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Continuing in the purport of Mantra 2, we are at the third paragraph here. Yes, the third paragraph. The instructions of Sri Isopanisad are more elaborately explained in the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes called the Gita Upanishad, the cream of all of the Upanishads. In the Bhagavad Gita, text 3, 9-16, the personality of Godhead says that one cannot attain the state of Naishkarmya, or akarma, without executing the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedic literature. This literature can regulate the working energy of a human being in such a way that he can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. When he realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva or Krishna, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge. In this purified stage, the modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, cannot act, and he is able to work on the basis of Naishkarmya. Such work does not bind one to the cycle of birth and death. Factually, no one has to do anything more than render devotional service to the Lord. However, in the lower stages of life, one cannot immediately adopt the activities of devotional service, nor can one completely stop fruitive work. A conditioned soul is accustomed to working for sense gratification, for his own selfish interest, immediate or extended. An ordinary man works for his own sense enjoyment, and when this principle of sense enjoyment is extended to include his society, nation, or humanity in general, it assumes various attractive names such as altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, and humanitarianism. These isms are certainly very attractive forms of karma bandhana, karmic bondage, but the Vedic instruction of Sri Isopanisad is that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, he should make them God-centered. There is no harm in becoming a family man or an altruist, a socialist, a communist, a nationalist, or a humanitarian, provided that one executes his activities in relation with Ishavasya, the God-centered conception. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.40, Lord Krishna states that God-centered activities are so valuable that just a few of them can save a person from the greatest danger. The greatest danger of life is the danger of gliding down again into the evolutionary cycle of birth and death among the 8,400,000 species. If somehow or other a man misses the spiritual opportunity afforded by his human form of life and falls down again into the evolutionary cycle, he must be considered most unfortunate. Due to his defective senses, a foolish man cannot see that this is happening. Consequently, Sri Isopanisad advises us to exert our energy in the spirit of Ishavasya. Being so engaged, we may wish to live for many, many years, otherwise a long life in itself has no value. A tree lives for hundreds and hundreds of years, but there is no point in living a long time like trees, or breathing like bellows, or begetting children like hogs and dogs, or eating like camels. A humble, God-centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of a life dedicated to godless altruism or socialism. When altruistic activities are executed in the spirit of Sri Isopanisad, they become a form of karma yoga. Such activities are recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 18.5-9, for they guarantee their executor protection from the danger of sliding down into the evolutionary process of birth and death. Even though such God-centered activities may be half-finished, they are still good for the executor, because they will guarantee him a human form in his next birth. In this way, one can have another chance to improve his position on the path of liberation. How one can execute God-centered activities is elaborately explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. We have rendered this book into English as The Nectar of Devotion. We recommend this valuable book to all who are interested in performing their activities in the spirit of Sri Isopanisad. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmritam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhu opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this continues the theme from the first mantra, which is that we have to recognize the proprietorship of the Lord over everything. Every little thing, including what we claim to be our own. We really have no, when you analyze it, we have no real right to anything because everything has been given to us. You would say, well, come on, we built all of these wonderful skyscraper buildings and technology and cars and computers. Well, how can you say it doesn't belong to us? Well, Prabhupada would analyze, okay, where did you get the raw materials? You know, where did the brick come from for these buildings and everything else that goes into them? And more importantly, where did the intelligence come from? Your intelligence, but brought these things together in some transformation that you now find useful and valuable. So when you analyze it, you realize that everything has been given to us and is being given to us on a moment-to-moment basis. We can't really live for a moment without the gifts of, say, nature, the air, the water. At every moment we're dependent on these things. And where is these gifts of nature coming from? Well, we learn from Bhagavad Gita, they're coming from Krishna. So, logically speaking, everything we have, we claim to have, really belongs to God. And until we recognize that, then we remain thieves, and probably that thieves can never really be peaceful or happy. That's part of our illusion, is that when we leave the spiritual world, we were just discussing this the other night at a home program, leaving the spiritual world begins with turning away from Krishna. It's called bahirmukha, means turning your face to the outside. And this is all the outside of the spiritual world. So that, how's it? Krishna Buri se jiva nare bahirmukha, ateva sangsara dhare deha dukkha. I forget a couple of words here. So, Buri means to forget. Having forgotten Krishna, Krishna Buri se jiva, anare bahirmukha, means from time immemorial, we can't trace it back, so it's virtually beginningless. Bahirmukha means turning your face outside to the material world. Having done that, then we come to this material world, and Maya Devi gives us all kinds of miseries known as samsara dukkha, birth, old age, disease, and death, and everything in between, the threefold miseries. So that's the result of our artificially distancing ourselves from Krishna, from his service, from our constitutional position of being concerned about his pleasure. Because if we actually act that way, and we are concerned about his pleasure, and we do that in the spirit of love, we become completely blissful. That's the source of our actual happiness. Whatever happiness we find, happiness or pleasure, whatever you want to call it, separate from Krishna, is just a shadow of that original Ananda. And the most salient factor of this pleasure that we find is that it's temporary. And because it's temporary, it can never give satisfaction to the soul. We ourselves are eternal. That's the first lesson that's the A of the ABCs of Krishna consciousness. We are eternal, and we're part and parcel of Krishna. So we have his qualities in minute degree. One of those qualities is that he's always full of bliss. And that's why we're always searching to be happy and secure in this world. And we're also searching that be a permanent situation. Death is a universal downer for any conditioned soul, anyone in a material body. It doesn't matter if you're an insect or an animal or a human being or a god. You don't want it to end. And the reason is because you're part of Krishna's eternal nature, the jayate mriyate vakadachan. But the situation of the material world is bound by time, and everything material has these 6 changes. We can try to recall these. This is important to realize. Birth comes into being. Growth stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dwindles, and is annihilated, is destroyed. Every organism. Now, even inanimate objects have those to a certain degree. You can't say that they produce byproducts. That's something of a living organism. But there's a beginning and an end for everything material, whether it's this building or whether it's this body or whether it's the whole universe. Because it came into being at a certain time, it will go out of being at a certain time, be dissolved into its constituent elements. The elements themselves are never destroyed, although they may become unmanifest. But the material energy is also eternal. But sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not. It's merged into the body of Mahavishnu. So our endeavor to be permanently happy and secure in this world is obviously is going to be a failure. And that contrast between our nature, which is to be eternal and to be eternally happy, and our actual situation in this material world is what produces all the anxiety and all the suffering and all the disappointment. But because we're ignorant, Maya Devi has these 2 elements, these 2 potencies by which she keeps us bound here. One is called the prakshet atmaka shakti, which is that she throws you down. It's just like a tackle on a football field. You're moving along nicely, but you're pulled down into the throes of birth and death and all of the suffering here. But the other one, which is even more insidious, is called avaranatmaka shakti, and that is the covering potency, covering our knowledge. So we have no idea what's going on, why we can't be happy, and we keep struggling birth after birth. So in the course of being in this conditioned state, we perform certain activities, and if they're not controlled and are not according to any kind of Vedic injunction, then they're called vikarma, and they bind us very, very strongly to this world and produce all kinds of suffering, even more suffering than ordinary karma. And this is brought out earlier in the purport, karma, akarma, and vikarma, which is right there in the 4th chapter that we're studying right now in the evening classes. So karma in this context means activity that's fruitive, but it's according to the rules and regulations of the Shastra, of the Vedas. There's a whole section called Karma Kanda, which gives you all kinds of rituals and ways of living so that you can get a better next birth, either on this planet or even go to heaven. There's a great concern. And it keeps you, it's not the best. The best is complete selfless service to the Lord. But if you're not ready for that, at least conduct your material activities according to the rules and regulations, so you don't perform grievous sin and produce grievous suffering for yourself, and most tragically lose the human form of life. It's very important to maintain yourself in the human form of life so that you can progress. And if you're a human being, then in one of those human lives, maybe you'll meet a devotee on the street and get an Isopanisad. And suddenly you have the association of a pure devotee, and the knowledge begins, and you have a chance to progress. But if you lose it, you're a dog or a cat or an insect, you just have to wait. So this is the big holocaust that's going on in material life. So books like the Isopanisad are training us, especially with Prabhupada's commentary, how we can get out of this bondage. So the first thing is to realize our actual position. Until we understand who we are, we may not be able to act on that basis all the time, but at least the understanding is there. Then we're helpless. So this first few verses are describing these essential points. So Prabhupada explains, as he said, that the instructions of Isopanisad are more elaborately explained in Bhagavad Gita, and he refers to verses 9 to 16 of the 3rd chapter. Now that verse 9 is the key verse. Maybe some of you know it. Balaram, you may know this verse. Yagyartart kramano loko yam karma bandhana tadartam karma kontaya mukta sangha samachana. In that verse, Krishna says, all activities must be performed as sacrifices for Vishnu. Otherwise, whatever you do is binding you to this material world. So right there, it's the statement of you should try to attain pure devotion. Pure devotional service means everything you do, every breath you take, from 24 hours a day, you're dreaming of it also, is a sacrifice for Vishnu or a service to Krishna. Why you're doing that? Now, if you actually adopt that principle or trying to attain to that principle, you're doing it first as a matter of duty, because it says in the Bhagavad Gita to do it, and I know that any other activity I'm going to get bound and I'm going to suffer, so I'm going to act like this. It's not on the basis of pure love yet, but if you actually act that way, especially accompanied with hearing and chanting, and that's the greatest sacrifice. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter? What's the greatest sacrifice, Damodar? You remember, 10th chapter? Of sacrifices I am? Japa. We do every day. Now, that was in Dwapara Yuga. In this Yuga, Kali Yuga, the sacrifice is the Sankirtan Jagya, but it's the same thing, it's chanting the holy name. It's a great sacrifice, but is it expensive? No. Sacrifices traditionally in the Vedic culture, in the age where sacrifices were huge, in the Treta Yuga, masses amount of ghee and grain are being burned. You have to hire so many Brahmins, everything has to be done at the right moment, in the right, position. Very, very difficult, elaborate sacrifices. That's not necessary or feasible in the modern age. Krishna himself, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has given us the Yuga Dharma, which is the sacrifice of the holy of Sankirtan, Sankirtan Yajna. The only real necessity of the Sankirtan Yajna, the prerequisite, is your faith. If you don't have any faith in it, you're not going to do it. But if you have faith, then you can walk outside or do it in the temple in your home. Prabhupada said, anyone can chant. You don't need the instruments, you don't have to be skilled. Just sit around in a circle and clap. He's visualizing thousands of people in their homes, sitting, clapping, chanting Hare Krishna. Why not? It's the easiest thing in the world. But it is a special gift, and it gives one, rockets worth of advancement. In other words, from that, then your activities performed as a sacrifice to the Vishnu aren't just some dry sacrifice, but they're actually the greatest joy. You think that dressing the deities is a big chore after a certain point? It's a great joy to be eligible to go on that altar and feel purified and be able to dress the deities and touch their lotus feet. Yes, you end up sacrificing your time. And who knows, if you're full pujari, you're sacrificing your work. You're just living as a simple pujari. But it's way beyond Yagyartart Kamano Yatra. You have to perform that sacrifice. Hey, people are lining up in Alachua. You have to. There's so much demand to dress those deities, and they have so many older Prabhupada disciples, especially ladies. In India, you can't go on the altar, if you're a lady. You can do so many different deity worship. You can cook, certainly, but you can't go on the altar. So there's a lot of retirement. And here, yeah, you can go on the altar. So for weeks in advance, they sign up. They plan out which flowers they're going to use for, and everything. It's a tremendous joy to do that. So this is the whole idea, is that what starts out as an austerity or a sacrifice in Krishna consciousness becomes the source of your greatest happiness. Because you're becoming purified, and the natural state of the living entity, which is, we should never forget, Anandamayo Vyasat. Anandamaya Vyasat is a sutra of the Vedanta sutras, and Prabhu would often quote it. Balaram, what does it mean? Anandamayo Vyasat. No, it's actually that the Supreme Brahman, is full of Ananda. And the Abhyasad part, someone explained to me, the way we know it is, because Abhyasa is like a practice. Yoga Abhyasa, you should practice. In other words, by his activities, we can understand that Bhagavan, Krishna, is full of Ananda. And you just read the Krishna book and you see it every turn. Even the killing of the demons, there's no risk that he might lose. It's just another pastime. He's giving great joy to the coward boys. Usually they're the witnesses. And we should always remember, Krishna takes great pleasure in giving his devotees pleasure. And the whole thing with the dancing on the Kaliya. Now, somehow that pastime always fascinates me, because he's engineered this thing. This whole Kaliya is in the lake of the Yamuna. He's poisoning it, and something has to be done. Krishna jumps into the lake, right? To the great terror of his coward friends who were with him, and the cows, and eventually the whole village comes, and they're all aghast because they don't know he's God, And so by the time they get there, he's wrapped up in the coils of this poisonous, monstrous dragon snake with 100 heads, and the very fumes of his breathing is killing the birds that are flying over. And here's their beloved Krishna. He looks like a total goner. So it starts out as the most horrible pain that they're feeling. Mother Yashoda and Nanda want to go into the lake, even though that's certain death. And Balaram is stopping them. He knows, so he's smiling a little bit. But the whole thing is engineered, as all of Krishna's pastimes are, to draw out this deep emotion of love and protectiveness, and for himself from his dearest devotees, and then he breaks free after 3 hours, and they're on the point of death, and he breaks free and starts dancing on the hoods, and you can see everybody, it's like from the jaws of death, he's been saved. And so the ecstasy, the joy, the ananda is just inconceivable. How happy they are, and then the demigods start playing the drums, and the whole thing goes on. The flowers, he's dancing on these many hoods, and it's said that all the beats that we play, that mridanga and tabla and everything that started out with that, Krishna created them when he's dancing on the heads of Kaliya. And then he comes out, and they embrace him, and then again it happens. It's so late that they go to sleep on the bank. It's too late to go back. Everyone's exhausted. And then the big fire comes, right? Help us, Krishna. And then he swallows the fire. So he's just playing. He's the dramatic actor, but he's also the hero. And the whole thing is just to churn up the loving emotions of his dearest devotees. So this is what the spiritual world is like. Of course, the spiritual world is no demons, but Prabhupada said there's a hint there may be a demon, so they get the mood of being saved by Krishna. So we're a long way from that, in our conditioned state. We can't see Krishna. We don't know anything about him. But if we adopt, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, we're drawn to the point of full surrender and full love. So this Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter, the ones he quotes here is Yagyartat Kamano Nyatra. the necessity of sacrifice. And then it goes on and describing the benefits of that. Let's see, I've got this. So then it describes how the whole world was created for that. In the beginning, when Brahma created the world, he, along with all of the necessities, there was the means of sacrifice, because without that sacrifice, there's no purification. There's no training of the conditioned mind to give up one's working simply for selfish desire. The whole problem is that in this conditioned state, we naturally are self-centered, the false ego around the body or the extensions of the body. And when we work, we're trying to work for the benefit of this body. We're identifying this as the self and our little circle, but that's simply burying us deeper and deeper into the illusion of separateness from Krishna, this false sense of self. So sacrifice directly counters that. And it describes how even just for our necessities, we need that. Anad bhavanti bhutani, this sense of sacrifice. But eventually, this idea of sacrifice, which is a purifying process, even the prasadam verse is here. Yagyashishta shinaksanto muchinte savakilmisha. Yagyashishta, shishta means remnants. So the whole idea of cooking for Krishna and offering to Krishna, that's also a sacrifice. And the remnants of that, which is prasadam, is what the santas eat. The santas are the saints, San Francisco, Santa Maria. They become free from all sins. The previous karma that we performed, it keeps us bound in this mood of performing more karma to counteract the evils. You see the syndrome. So the way to get free of that is by sacrificing for Vishnu and only taking the remnants. Otherwise, you're just cooking for yourself, you're eating sin. So he's going on. Then he describes Anand bhavanti bhutani. If you want to eat, you need grain. If you want grain, you need rain. Where does the rain come from? The rain comes from the devas. So you have to perform sacrifice for the devas. Ultimately, it comes from Krishna. All of these yagyas are defined in the Shastra, which is ultimately comes from the breathing of the Lord. So it all comes back to Krishna in the end. That's the whole idea. And the Bhagavad Gita it starts from where we're at. In other words, okay, you got to eat, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, how are you going to eat? You got to get rain. Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the higher powers. You have to recognize that we're not producing the rain. The rain is given to us. And that idea that in order to prosper in this world, you have to perform sacrifice is essential here. It's kind of a circle. You please the devas by worship and sacrifice, and they provide the rain. So one who doesn't follow this circle of sacrifice is very sinful. And simply, agayur indriyaramo. This is a famous line. Agayur indriyaramo mogang parta sajivati. Agayur means a lifetime of sin. A lifetime of sin means no Vedas, no nothing, no regulation, just do what you want. What's the impetus for activity? Indriya ramo, that's sense gratification, the pleasure of the senses. Krishna declares, Mogang parta sajivati, such a soul lives uselessly, wasting this tremendously valuable human form of life. So that's the verses probably referred to in the Isopanisad. So the idea is that one has to come to the point of naishkarmya. This was discussed before. Naishkarmya is a state of being in which you're not incurring any karma, and whatever karma results you have, reactions, good or bad, are being negated and neutralized. It's kind of a debt, that you're liquidating in this lifetime. If you're able to do that in the human form of life, then you're no longer bound to this plane. One can do that only by becoming a pure devotee, and then one is free to go back to Godhead. So that state of naishkarmya comes when, as we've been reading in the 4th chapter, every single activity that we perform is free from the desire for sense gratification. Well, that seems impossible. It's only possible in devotional service. I was just reading this section in the 11th canto, the 9 Yogendras. This is the first of the lessons. Each of the 9 has his own little lesson. And the first one which has like 4 or 5 verses that are quoted all the time. And one of the verses I understood from our old friend Vidur. You remember Vidur? Was it Vidur? Who was it? The Indian gentleman who was here. Anyway, what was it? Varun. I'm sorry, Varun. I got the wrong name there. Varun. When I shared this verse with him, he said, "Oh, that's a verse that many Indians learn from childhood. Kayena vacha munasindayava buddhyatmanavanusa karoti yadyat sakalam padasmai narayanayati samarpayetat." So it covers everything. Kayena, your body; vacha, your words; manasa, your mind; your senses, indriya; the intelligence, your very self, all of which you have gotten due to your karma. Each of us has a configuration of these. Whatever you have, you're working, you're doing things with them. Working means acting. You're working. Karoti yad yad. Whatever you do with any of these, and we're using them all the time, one has to have the attitude, this is a sacrifice for Narayan. Narayanayati. I mean, literally think that way. That's what the iti means. Iti is like a quote mark in Sanskrit. Narayan samarpi, I'm offering this to Narayan. So it's like you're walking from here to there. Said, okay, each of these steps, this is for Narayan, this is for Krishna. To really feel that the motive, the purpose of your activities, and whether you're breathing or whatever you're doing, is for Krishna. Now that's what this institution is all about. To give you a context in which, yes, I'm not just walking from one place to another. I have a duty at the other end. I need to wash the pots. Then that whole walking becomes part of the sacrifice, you see? It's part of your service. You can go to ecstasy just walking. You see how it is? So that's what this verse is about. And that's the culmination of this Naishkarmya, or karma state, is that there's no fruitive work. You're feeling connected. Your impetus for your work is that you're engaging in some duty for Krishna. And everything that's supporting that activity, is also part of your devotional service. This is how you can live outside and, and still become a pure devotee. Because I'm not just working, I'm working to keep this body and soul together so it remains a good instrument for serving Krishna, not for some separate, pleasure. So that's the whole idea here, and one can live as long as he wants this way, and not remain transcendental or on the Brahmabhuta platform. So Prabhu then talks about the isms, famous altruism, socialism, communism. This is just different means of sense gratification. Without Krishna in the center, communism as an attractive principle was, at one point until it was manifested and then we saw what was wrong with it. But the idea that, from each according to, this is a theme, from all of my father's readings to me of these, the Karl Marx, what was it called, Das Kapital? The one thing I remembered that's really applicable to Krishna consciousness, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. That was one of his, the ideals of communism. Okay, everybody work according to his, he doesn't say Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, but you're working according, and you'll get what you need, and you work according to your ability. Well, it didn't work out that way, because without Krishna in the center, whoever's managing starts to think, I can exploit these workers, so it doesn't work. But it works with Krishna in the center. You get what you need. That was the first verse. Ishavashamidam sarvam, Krishna owns everything, but you're entitled to your quota for what you need to maintain. Simple life. Where your real pleasure, simple living, high thinking, that's another, nice slogan of Prabhupada. If you have the high thinking, Krishna consciousness, you can be satisfied with practically nothing, as proved by the Goswamis, right? I've got this simple little life, Lord Chaitanya had his devotee. Who was that? Kolavecha Sridhar? He was very poor. He was making baskets out of banana leaves or something, and selling them. It's not a very lucrative operation. And whatever he got, he's using half of that income to worship the Ganges. So you can imagine how simple he was living. He had this old pot. It was kind of rusty away, and his water pot. So Lord Chaitanya, to bless him, he comes and he drinks out of that water pot, which is, for Krishna to take advantage of your facilities like that is great. And he loved this Kolavesha Shrita because he was always thinking of Krishna and always thinking of Lord Chaitanya and using whatever he had for the service of the Lord. So inside he's completely blissful, but externally has practically nothing. This is the way society can actually be happy, where everyone is in their position, and their real happiness has come from being Krishna conscious, glorifying Krishna, festival about Krishna, serving Krishna, deities, raising your children in Krishna conscious. It's all for Krishna. And so you're floating along in this ocean of bliss, and material comes, material goes, it doesn't matter. But if you don't have that, there's a big void in there, and you're trying to fill it with name and fame and objects and things which are always dissatisfying. That's the present thing. So all of these isms, altruism, socialism, now some of them are better than others. To be kind to others, that's more in the mode of goodness. But it's not good enough, because the mode of goodness will then be covered by the mode of passion and ignorance eventually. Nothing is secure. Nationalism, great, that's going to help us. So there are attractive forms of karmic bondage. This is more different karmic bondage. But the Vedic instruction with the Isopanisad is that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, he should make them God-centered. And Prabhu made that point also in the Isopanisad. God-centered communism. And that's what the ideal community is. Everyone who works according to his propensity, Vaishya, Shudra, whatever it is, Kshatriya, Brahman. But Krishna's in the center. Atak pumbir dvida shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha svanustitasya dharmasya sangsidhir haditoshanam. This is right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, where he's saying, here's the real varnashram. Here's how society could be organized successfully. He's saying to Sutta Goswami is saying to the sages there, Dvija Shrestha, Varnashram Vibhagasa means the divisions of Varna and Ashram. Svanustitasya, performed very nicely, the perfectionly siddhasya, Svanustitasya dharmasa, sangsidhir, the complete perfection, haditoshanam, when Krishna is satisfied. So that has to be there in the overall plan and in everyone's heart as they're working in the varnashram. And then it becomes Daiva Varnashram. It's called Daiva Varnashram, divine Varnashram. Otherwise it can degrade into caste consciousness than what we have in India today. So that's Krishna conscious communism, if you will, from each according to his ability and each according to his needs. But what are the needs? The need is not just enough bread and a roof over your head. The need is spiritual nourishment, enough kirtan, enough worship of the deity, enough hearing and chanting. Then that it all works. Without it, it doesn't work. Okay, and then one more point, and then if there's any last-minute question. So Prabhupada refers here to this critical verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Nehabri Kramanashosji, that in this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution. Now, where do you find that in anything material? There's always loss in every diminution. Everything is eventually destroyed, including your body. So, because Krishna consciousness gives you spiritual merit, punya, not material punya, but transcendental piety and pious credits, they're not lost when the body goes because it adheres to the soul. So there's no loss or diminution, and even a little advancement on this path. This was so encouraging to all the devotees in the ISKCON movement when they first read it. Okay, we're making a little advancement. I'm not a pure devotee, but I have a little advancement. So you're saved from the greatest danger. Mahato bayat. Bayat means something you fear, or fear itself. Okay, I'll end in a minute. So, is it on? Yeah. So, even a little advancement saves one from the greatest danger, which is gliding down again to the evolutionary cycle of 8,000,000,000 species. So we want to avoid that at all costs. So if we live according to the Ishavasya spirit, then we can avoid that, continue our human form of life, and continue our way on the path back to Godhead. So that's what this is all about. Very upbeat. But then in the next few verses, you're going to say, on the other hand, one who lives a dark life is asurya namate loka. You know, this Isopanisad is heavy. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. That's the next verse. Any discussion on this verse, or these two verses? Isho is a very important book.
This is in relation to. You want to trade? Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Just but keep it down low because
This one's a lot louder than that one. So in relation to karma and karma and working and all that all those things. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, and maybe someone's asked you this before, you thought about this and that, but sometimes devotees are kind of confused. Oh, why would Krishna say that? You should, even if you should do your own duty, even if you do it imperfectly, but even if you could do somebody else's duty perfectly, you shouldn't do it. So maybe you could just comment on that idea.
Well, what I always took from that is that, Krishna is so often in Krishna he's speaking about society as a whole. Why does he come? When there's an upsurge of adharma in the whole society, and there's, so in any given little spot in the society, things may be going okay. We're managing. I know the demons are over there; they're doing their thing, but no, Krishna is concerned with the whole thing. So it's important for the organization of society that people know their roles and they follow them, because there's when there's people are doing what they're not really qualified for because I want to be a Brahmin, But really, what's valuable about being a Brahmin, I can see, is that people honor you as a Brahmin. So if I can just look like a Brahmin, I may be, and get some rudimentary, skills, and then I'll benefit. Well, that's the beginning of degradation of society. Is this hypocrisy of pretending to be something? So Krishna is trying to head this off. That you stay in your lane. Basically, you're qualified as a Vaishya, and you're doing nicely as a Vaishya. Don't try to be something you're not. Even if you think you can do it perfectly, don't do it because really it doesn't matter what you are. This is the thing that the imperfection of the varnashram, as stated in the Bhagavatam, is when you please Krishna. I mean, how can the Sudras ever be happy and satisfied? On the material plane, they can't, because they see all the others having all the honor and all of the wealth and everything. They're really only satisfied when they're Krishna conscious. So I think that's what I understand from that, is that be satisfied in what you can do, what you're suited to do, and if possible perfect that, but mostly advance in Krishna consciousness, see it as a sacrifice and move forward, and then you go back to Godhead, or next life you'll be more qualified. But if you because going out of your quitting your job and doing something that you think you can do better, it creates a uproar in society. It tends to cause a lot of confusion and dissatisfaction, and that's, I think, what we find today. Nobody is satisfied with what they're doing. They're all just clawing around, trying to survive, and it's a disaster. That's what I get from that. Hare Krishna. Okay, all glory to Prabhu. Hare Krishna.